A Daughter's Account of the Indian Fighter. The Cambria Freeman, August 13, 1886. Welcome to these dramatized, true historical Bigfoot encounters from the past. The first story starts with Aunt Sally Cuffle, daughter of Adam Poe, the Indian fighter, is the oldest resident of Wayne County, Ohio at almost 96 years old. She lives alone in Congress Village, where she has resided for many years. Aunt Sally, born in 1791, Washington County, Pennsylvania, was married to Adam Cuffle, and after his death, she has lived alone in her homestead. Aunt Sally recounts a different version of the famed battle between Adam Poe and Bigfoot, the Indian chief. According to her, it was her uncle Andrew Poe who engaged Bigfoot in a hand-to-hand fight, while her father shot and killed the chief. The story begins with a raid by 7 Wyandots on a white settlement, prompting Adam and Andrew to lead a pursuit. Andrew stealthily approached the river and surprised Bigfoot and a smaller Indian waiting for the group. After Andrew's gun misfired, a fierce struggle ensued. He managed to shoot the smaller Indian and nearly drowned Bigfoot in the river, but the fight continued on shore. It was there that Adam arrived, and after a race to reload, he shot Bigfoot just in time. Andrew was later mistakenly shot by one of their own men but recovered, and the rest of the Indians were killed. Adam was also wounded during the fight. Alberta, Bigfoot walking on water. Linda Jo Martin, July 25, 2011. In January 1991, a worker south of Valley View, Alberta, Canada, witnessed something unusual while crossing a bridge. It was late at night, around 10 p.m., when he saw a large black figure walking across the frozen river below. Its arms swung in a distinct motion, and its massive size made it clear that it was not a man. The witness firmly believed he had seen Bigfoot. Despite the skepticism of others, the witness stood by his story, confident in what he had seen. Bigfoot sightings, especially in such remote and forested areas, are not uncommon. The vast wilderness surrounding the area, with its parks and untouched natural beauty, provides the perfect setting for such an encounter. Though many may laugh at the idea, those who believe in Bigfoot know that there are countless tales of sightings just like this one, each contributing to our understanding of these elusive creatures. A fearless encounter. Tim Peeler, Cleveland County, North Carolina. Tim Peeler had a startling encounter with Bigfoot in his own backyard. It was June 5, 2010, when the creature appeared near his home. Rather than showing fear, Peeler grabbed a stick and prodded the Bigfoot, ordering it to leave, fearing it might harm his dog. Remarkably, the creature complied and left the area. Peeler's call to 911 about the incident gained significant attention, and his story spread across the media. While some doubted the story, others admired his courage in standing up to the massive creature. Peeler believed that, like any animal, a Bigfoot respects whoever takes charge, and his fearlessness saved his dog that day. Though some remained skeptical of his claims, Peeler's calm, commanding attitude toward the creature left a lasting impression. Pennsylvania, Fayette County. Bigfoot sightings. Linda Jo Martin. March 17, 2010. Recent Bigfoot sightings in Fayette County, Pennsylvania, have caught the attention of the Herald Standard and the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society. One sighting occurred on September 23, 2009, when a mother and daughter spotted a tall, muscular figure from just 150 feet away. Bigfoot researcher Eric Altman investigated the site the next day, finding a possible footprint and lean-to structure. Other sightings from the summer of 2009 include a woman seeing 2 Bigfoot creatures feasting on blackberries, one of which appeared to be a juvenile. In January 2010, Heath Landman and his son witnessed a large bipedal creature crossing the road in 3 steps. The creature was described as over 6 feet tall with a cone-shaped head, and further investigation uncovered hair samples and footprints in the snow. These ongoing sightings add to the growing collection of reports in the area, hinting at a continuing presence of Bigfoot in Pennsylvania's rural corners. Weird stuff seen in the woods. Linda Jo Martin, December 4, 2009. Browsing through Bigfoot forums often reveals strange and eerie stories from those who spend time in the wilderness. One particularly creepy thread discussed odd and unexplained things found while hunting for Bigfoot. Items like clothing, car parts, and ritual sites were discovered deep in the woods, far from civilization, leaving many researchers unsettled. One account involved a crow tied high in a tree, while another person found a car hood inexplicably placed on a remote mountainside. Many such oddities have been encountered in the wilderness, but not all can be attributed to Bigfoot. Sometimes the scariest thing in the woods is not a creature at all, but other humans. The Beast of the Cascade Range, as recounted by Josiah Harper, trapper of the Pacific Northwest. Journal entry, October 3rd, 1883. We had been in the Cascade Mountains for 3 months now, well into the autumn trapping season. The mountains of Washington Territory were unforgiving this time of year, with early frosts creeping into the valleys and game becoming scarce. My partner, Thomas "Red" McAllister, and I had set up camp by the banks of the Skookum River, about a day's journey from the town of Snohomish. Our traps were laid and the pelts were good, but something strange had been happening for the last week. The first sign was the game. In all my years in the wilds, I've never seen deer or elk move so skittishly. They fled at the faintest sound, sometimes before we were even within rifle range. Tracks littered the soft earth around the river, large, too large for any bear or cougar. Red called them a fluke of nature, but I saw the way he avoided looking too closely. The prints were unlike any animal I had ever known, spanning near 16 inches in length, deep impressions like something heavy had passed through. The second sign came at night. It was the howling, long, low, mournful cries that echoed off the mountains. Not wolves, no, these cries were different. There was a guttural depth to them, like the sound came from something massive, with lungs twice the size of any creature we'd encountered. The howls began after the sun set, and sometimes they carried on well into the early hours, making sleep impossible. On the fourth night, Red swore he saw movement beyond the firelight. A silhouette, impossibly tall, just at the edge of the clearing. I dismissed it as nerves, but I had to admit, something felt wrong. The woods were too quiet. The birds, normally noisy as they settled into their roosts, had gone silent. The wind itself seemed to hold its breath. 2 days later, we found the trap line along the ridge had been destroyed. Steel traps, strong enough to hold a black bear, were mangled and twisted like they were made of twine. Our bait had been taken, but there were no animal remains, no signs of a struggle, just those same large prints leading deeper into the forest. That evening, as we prepared dinner, a heavy stench filled the air, pungent and musky, like the odor of a wet animal, but far more intense. It was as though the very ground had soured. Red and I exchanged glances, each of us too proud to admit our unease. As the fire flickered low, we heard it again, the howl, closer this time. It sent a shiver through my spine like I had never felt before. We grabbed our rifles and stood back to back, scanning the tree line. The silence that followed was crushing, but then we saw it. Emerging from the shadows, no more than 30 paces from where we stood, was a creature unlike anything I had ever seen. Towering over us, its massive form seemed to blend with the night. It stood upright, covered in dark matted hair, its broad shoulders wider than any man's. Its eyes, faintly reflecting the glow of our dwindling fire, were intelligent, watchful. The head was conical, almost like a great ape, but the way it moved was unmistakably human. We froze. For a moment, none of us moved. The creature sniffed the air, tilting its head as though assessing us, the intruders in its realm. Then, with a low grunt, it turned and slipped back into the forest, moving with an unnatural grace for something so large. It was gone in seconds, leaving behind only the lingering odor and the sound of heavy branches snapping in its wake. Red and I did not speak a word that night. We packed up camp at dawn, abandoning the traps we hadn't yet checked. As we made our way down the mountain, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Once or twice, I caught a glimpse of movement in the distance, a flash of dark fur between the trees. By the time we reached town, Red was done. He left for the coast, vowing never to trap in the Cascades again. I stayed, drawn by a mixture of fear and curiosity, but I have never returned to that ridge. I've spoken to other trappers and the local Skagit people since. Some claim they've heard the same howls, seen the same prints. The native folk call it Saskets, wild man of the forest. They say it's been here long before us, and it's best left alone. I don't know what we saw that night, but I do know this. Something lives up in those mountains, something bigger, smarter, and more elusive than any creature I've ever encountered. The Beast of the Athabasca, recounted by Etienne Mercier, fur trapper in Alberta Journal entry, September 14th, 1867. It has been a grueling season along the Athabasca River. The summer wanes, and the chill of autumn creeps through the trees, reminding us that winter will soon stake its claim over this land. My trapping partner, Jacques Boudreau, and I have been in these woods for nearly 4 months now. Game is plenty, but the forest feels different this year. The natives, the Cree, have been warning us for weeks. Whispers of a creature they call Chihatanka, meaning big man. They say it roams these forests, as old as the land itself, with the strength of 10 men and the mind of a cunning predator. At first, we dismissed it as superstition, nothing more than stories meant to keep outsiders like us from venturing too far. But now I am not so sure. The first sign came 3 weeks ago. We had set traps along the riverbank, hoping to catch beavers before the freeze. When we returned the next morning, the traps were destroyed, bent and twisted like they had been caught in the hands of some giant. At first, we thought a bear had stumbled upon them, but the damage was too precise, too intentional. The prints we found along the bank were like none I had ever seen. They were enormous, each one nearly twice the size of a man's foot, deep and clear in the mud. No bear leaves tracks like that. Jacques was uneasy. He claimed to hear strange sounds in the night, low, guttural calls that echoed through the trees, unlike anything we had ever encountered. I laughed it off, blaming the wind, the river, anything to ease his mind and mine. But in truth, I began to feel it too, a presence lurking just beyond the edge of the campfire's light. A week ago, everything changed. It was just before dawn, and the air was thick with mist rising off the river. Jacques and I had split up to check separate trap lines, agreeing to meet back at camp before noon. The morning was eerily quiet, too quiet. The birds were gone, the usual rustling of animals in the underbrush absent. As I crouched by the river to inspect a trap, I heard it. A snapping branch, heavy footfalls. Slowly I stood and turned, expecting to see Jacques returning early. But instead, standing some 50 paces from me, half hidden among the trees, was it. The creature was massive, easily over 8 feet tall, with broad shoulders and covered in thick, dark hair. Its face, though shadowed, was unmistakably human, yet not. The eyes, deep-set and dark, glared at me with an intensity I have never seen in any animal. Its breath came in low, steady bursts, visible in the cool morning air. The creature's arms hung low, long and muscular, each movement deliberate and slow as it watched me. My heart thundered in my chest, but I stood frozen, unable to move. It took a single step forward, the ground beneath it trembling slightly, and in that moment, I found the strength to act. Without thinking, I fired my rifle into the air, the sound shattering the stillness. The creature flinched, but didn't flee right away. It stared at me for a heartbeat longer as if considering, before turning and disappearing into the forest, vanishing as silently as it had appeared. I ran back to camp, my pulse racing, and found Jacques already there, pale as death. He had seen it too, from the opposite side of the river, watching as it moved through the trees, shadowing me without my knowing. We packed up that very day, abandoning our traps and furs. Nothing in the world could make us stay another night in those woods. The Cree were right. There is something in the wilds of Alberta, something ancient, something that does not belong to our world. The Chihatanka, the big man, is real. I saw it with my own eyes, and I will carry the memory of that encounter until the day I die. We returned to Fort Edmonton weeks earlier than planned. Our story met with skepticism and laughter from the other trappers. But I know what I saw. Jacques knows it too. We will never return to those woods, for there are some things in this world that man was not meant to hunt.